Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of the Rectified Podcast. Today, my guest is Nora Arzoumanian. She's a good friend of mine. We actually met during our MBA. She was in the part time MBA, and I was doing it full time, but somehow we ended up being friends. Nora is an e commerce executive. She has worked in one of the biggest brand names that you know here. Well, many of the brand names that you know here. David's Tea, Reitmans, Specialized Bicycles, Gosselin. Today she's at Mobilia, and there's many more brands where she worked.
Those are the major ones.
Yeah. Nora, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy that you're here and that we're doing this.
Me too.
We always have these conversations, but without a camera. So today we're
Exactly.
gonna take this to live to the audience.
Yes, exactly. I'm sure it's going to be interesting.
Tell me, just because they don't know you, tell me a little bit more about all the brands that you worked with in e-com, what you did with them, just so that they know, where you come from.
Yeah, so I think you covered most of them. So I started my e-com career. I've been in digital my whole career. I started in advertising and then I moved to Air Canada. I was there for a couple of years. But I moved to e-com when I was at Reitmans. That was my first school. That's where I fell in love with e-com because for me, it's like an environment where it's like you own your own little business because you touch on so many different things and so many things can influence your sales. So that's why I really love it. I love the aspect of data as well, the fact that you can make some changes and see the results in real time. So at Reitmans, I was working on the RW & Co brand. And following that, I went to David's Tea and I worked on the e-com over there for the US and Canada. And after that, I went to Gosselin. So Gosselin is, for those who don't know, they're a camera and video camera company. They sell Rode,
These things.
a lot of the stuff that we have here is sold by Gosselin. They're the biggest retailer in Quebec. Over there, I launched their website. We migrated from Magento 1 to Magento 2. So that was a huge project that I managed over there. And following that, I went to Specialized, which is the luxury bikes. And I completely built their whole e-com ecosystem from the ground up. Email marketing, social media, influencer, everything. I built it all. Very proud of what we did over there. And now I am the head of e-commerce at Mobilia. So Mobilia is a Quebec family-owned furniture company. So it's a nice business to be in. There's a lot of opportunity. We are present in Quebec and in Ontario. And we are also working on a migration. So we will be moving from Magento to Shopify very soon. So very exciting things happening.
If you're enjoying this conversation and want to make sure you never miss an episode, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe. We cover stories, insights, and practical strategies from founders and product-based businesses that you won't hear anywhere else. And if you know someone who's building a brand or thinking about starting one, share this episode with them.
You worked in family businesses. You worked in bigger organizations such as Reitmans and etc. So you moved, from big to small. They're not very small, but they're like medium, let's say medium to large, family-owned corporations, all types of things. What is the common thing that you found in all of these companies?
Well, the challenges remain the same. Certain environments have different challenges as well, but e-com is e-com at the end of the day. Whether you're selling luxury bikes or you're selling tea, at the end, you need to optimize your website. You need to make sure that your conversion is optimized. The environments, of course, differ. The amount of liberty that you have differs. So in bigger corporations where your role is a little bit more, you're a little bit more in a sandbox. It's a little bit different where you have to get, for every idea, you have like 3 layers of approval until you can launch something versus in a smaller brand like where I am right now.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I report to the president, and I'm lucky that he's someone that values me and my experience. So a lot of the ideas that I have, you have to run them by him, of course, but I have a lot more liberty to implement the things that I want. So that's the difference I find in both environments. Um, and there's more room to grow in the more smaller
Yeah.
environments than the bigger ones.
I've always worked in small. I don't know. Well, I've done one contract with like a really big corporation, but also it was like a smaller entity within the big corporation. So it felt like a small business. But I imagine that in the smaller companies, things move faster. If you want to do something, you can adjust quickly. If there's an issue, I don't know, if there's a campaign that needs some adjustment on the go, you can do it immediately. While if you're like a P&G or a PepsiCo or something, there is no way that you switch the campaign immediately. And I
Right.
think that's the beauty of a small business because you can just adjust and make
There's more
mistakes. But
agility.
yeah,
Yeah, that's true. The only thing that I will say is sometimes in smaller businesses, you don't have the budgets
yeah,
to make, changes, or the teams are smaller. So sometimes sometimes the teams are the main reason why you can't make changes quickly. So although, yes, you have more
yeah.
agility, but then you're dependent on the people who work there, and those people have multiple projects. So at the end, maybe your project will fall on the back burner because there's other things that are more important. So yeah, so it's like a balance.
Yeah, depends on the teams that you have and
Yeah.
the people who surround you, but that's the case in every single company also. So it doesn't matter.
True. Exactly. Like I said at the beginning,
Yeah.
the challenges remain the same.
Yeah, 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 exactly. So today our audience is mainly smaller businesses or startups. And I believe that many of the things that you do or you have done may help them. They will have like a glimpse of what happens in the bigger companies, but that they can apply also in their businesses. And I really want to talk about paid ads and social and all of this aspect first.
Sure. Yeah.
Many of the startups and the smaller companies, they rely a lot on ads, although they don't have the budget. So instead of thinking about how I can use organic social media or whatever, email marketing or my relationships with people, etc., to sell more, because obviously at the end of the day we all want to sell more, they start pumping money they may or may not have on Meta ads and TikTok ads and Google ads and this and that. Tell me, what do you think about this? Your opinion about ads and what else they can do to actually move the needle instead of spending money they may or may not have.
It's a good point. I'll start by saying that, of course, I do believe in Meta and Google and all of those platforms, and they do have value when done well. However, they're not the end all be all.
Yeah.
And I believe that your fundamentals have to be strong. If your fundamentals are not strong, if your site is not optimized, it doesn't matter if you bring that traffic to your website, it's not going to convert. So make sure that you understand your audience, first of all, well. What are their friction points? So whether you're selling something that's, since I've worked in, industries where it was long purchase cycles, emotional purchases like I am right now at Mobilia versus tea, for example, that's very quick. The purchase cycle is short. At the end of the day, there are frictions for each type of industry, and you need to make sure that those frictions are removed so that somebody feels confident to click the purchase button. Maybe not on their first time, but second time, etc.
Yeah.
So your website has to be a well-run machine. If that's not done, don't spend money on ads. First, do that. Then my advice is to focus more on the channels that you own, like you talked about, like your organic. That doesn't cost you money, but build a community there first. Make sure that you invest in good content and content that your audience would want to hear about. You know, bring like a little bit of value added so that why will somebody follow you? You know, because you are the expert in your field, then show that. Email marketing and SMS for me, it's a hill that I will die on.
Yeah.
It's a gold mine. You know, businesses who do not optimize will lose. Like it is the biggest way for you to drive your revenue. Somebody who has signed up to receive your newsletters, it's because they're really interested. So make sure that you are
Yes.
optimizing those channels. Make sure that you are spending time, again, understanding your audience, bringing value content that they want to see, not just sell, but interesting content. Like, for example, when I was at Specialized, we would build out our calendar for the month, every single month for email marketing, making sure that we were consistently communicating 2, 3, 4 times per week.
Per week.
Yes.
Okay.
At least,
See, it's not a lot because everybody tells me, oh my God, I don't want to send them multiple emails and things like that. So you do 2, 3 times a
oh
week.
yes, 2,
Okay.
3 for me is the number. I will say at Mobilia, sometimes we do send more. There are weeks where we'll send
Yeah.
like 4 or 5.
Maybe if there's a campaign.
When there's exactly for the promotions. I find that's a little excessive. 5, in my opinion, is a bit too much. But 2, 3, I think, is like the sweet spot. You will always think that you're sending more, but you're sending too much. But communicate consistently is very important. So, you know, what I would always do is, okay, I know I have these campaigns coming up. I know these product launches or these promotions. I plot those in. And then how else can I, you know, combine content that's relevant? So, for example, at Specialized, if I was there right now, you know, it's spring is coming. Soon you're going to be, you know, everybody who rides indoors is going to take off their bikes from their trainers, and put them outside. So what are you going to do to prepare your bike? So that's content because you are the expert. So it's content that people would like to hear. So you're not necessarily selling something, you're just giving them important information.
So you give them advice about this particular, well, it's the high season for bikes
Yes.
if we're talking about bikes. But in general, you always have like some sort of a story to tell that brings them like a small win,
Yes.
sort of.
Yeah, because you know, you want to, if you're just sending them emails that are just trying to sell them something, at some point they're gonna unsubscribe because it's too much of that same message. But if you sprinkle in some messaging that's just, you know, content that's interesting to them, that's relevant, and they see that like, oh, actually you're not trying to sell me something, you're just giving me value, they'll continue to follow you. But you know, email marketing, it's a lot more than that. You know, it's segmentation, it's testing, it's finding that little segment that you didn't think about. It's the automations, you know, tools like Klaviyo, which I love, are, you know, just so easy to use. And they really give you a lot for the money that you're spending. Use that and spend time developing your email marketing before you start to spend money that you do or do not have in paid ads.
I feel that we need to do a special episode about email marketing another time.
Sure.
Because this is a subject that is very, I always talk about it with everybody I work with or like all the brand founders that I know. And they miss that. They have lists of, I don't know, thousands of people where they're small brands. They don't have hundreds of thousands, but they have a few thousand. Sometimes they send one email and they sell a lot from it. It converts.
That's
like a very stupid, basic email.
Yeah.
And imagine what would happen if you actually do it right and play it, you know, the right way. So we're going to do that.
Sure.
another
I love it.
time.
To me, it's I'll always say this, it's a gold mine and you need to invest time in it and money because you own it. It's your first party. I think that email marketing is maybe less sexy and
Yes.
paid ads are more sexy, and that's why people focus on it, and that's what they see. You know, they're on social media and they keep on seeing the ads, so they think that they need to be doing that as well. So yeah, with
Yeah.
pleasure, we'll do
Yes.
another episode.
But I mean, it's a known fact that it costs always less to bring existing clients rather than acquiring new customers. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer that I should put a lot of focus on what I already have, which is these, I don't know, 10,000 people who are on my list that I can communicate with very easily rather than spend thousands of dollars. Yes, okay, spend, acquire, but these people are going to bring you the cash flow. And, you have to decide where you want to put an effort. And oftentimes people put more effort on the paid ads because it's basically effortless. It's more effortless.
It's easier.
Yeah. Like you just pay and it's done, while the other one you have to come up constantly
It's
with
true.
the things to
That's
communicate
true.
and do.
Yes, that's true. It takes more
It's
effort.
more passive, let's say.
It's true. But the automations, if you set those up and you set them up, because there's, limitless
Yes.
automations, it's
Yes.
not just abandoned cart, there's all kinds that you can do. Those, yes, the setup takes time, but then it just rolls and it just brings you money. Um,
Yeah.
At Mobilia, we just activated some of our automations and couldn't believe how quickly. So, for example, abandoned cart, which a lot of businesses, including Mobilia, people use the cart as their wish list. So
Yes.
they're not necessarily abandoning their cart. They're just putting the furniture in there that they want to go see in store, or they just don't want to forget. So the abandoned cart rate is pretty high. But so when I'm sending out the flow of abandoned carts, it's not necessarily sent to people who are actually abandoning their cart. However, the click rate is right now our click rate is around 8%, which is like pretty high for emails, and the revenue that it's driving is pretty impressive. Although I will say that Klaviyo, like all platforms, including Meta and Google and all that, they will auto attribute a lot of the revenue to themselves just because somebody clicked on that email and then made a purchase. They will attribute it to themselves. So the numbers are inflated, but it's super impressive that even in a business like Mobilia, where it's long purchase cycles, that these flows are actually like driving revenue, and you don't have to do anything. You
Yeah.
just let it roll.
Yeah. I love this.
Yeah.
Let's talk about SMS. You mentioned SMS, and many people are refused to use this. It's new. It feels like you're invading somebody's privacy, sort of, because you're sending a text message, and sometimes it gets annoying, and you just have to make it stop. How is that converting, and how do you approach? Like, what strategy do you use to do that?
Yeah, that's a good point. So at Mobilia, we just started to do SMS. And at the beginning, internally, there was some pushback for the same reasons you mentioned. However, in the experiences that I've had, like at Specialized, we use SMS, it converts really well. It has very high click rates compared to even email. And it's just a great way to broaden your reach. So we actually just started in January to even get email phone numbers, and
Oh.
but our list has grown exponentially so quickly. It was actually surprising how willing people were to give their phone numbers, and it's been working very, very well. We see click rates of like 10, 13, 15% even. But I will say one thing. I believe that the strategy needs to be that you send SMSs only sparingly. So one mistake that we made is that because it performed so well that we got a little like trigger happy and we started to send them too many times, and the click rate decreased.
Yeah.
So for me, it needs to be used only when you have really big promotions or very big product launches or something of that sort. don't overuse it because your customers will get annoyed at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to send emails, they're in your inbox somewhere, but an SMS is a direct.
Yeah, but I think people will more and more get used to it. I think it's still new in Canada. In the US, it's very,
Yes.
very, I mean, we're always a little bit behind the US.
Yeah.
In the US, there's not a brand that doesn't send it. But, you know, like our competitors at Mobilia, you know, I won't name them, but they send it every single weekend. So
Okay.
I find that's excessive, but maybe it's working
Yeah.
for them. If not, they would have stopped.
I find it interesting how anything, like any of the activities that you're doing, are converting for items that are relatively expensive. You're not
Yeah.
selling $10 items, you're
Yeah.
selling, or 50 or 100, you're selling thousands of dollars. You did the same with Specialized, with bicycles that cost like $10,000 and more. Online, people are buying them
Yeah.
from an email or from an SMS versus a tee or a t-shirt, you
Yeah.
know, and all of these things, or a microphone. Well,
Yes.
these are in the middle, somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Price range.
Are the strategies the same for like a $10,000 item versus a $10 item?
No. So, I mean, I'll say this again. The fundamentals will remain the same, but different channels convert differently. So, for example, emails will convert a lot higher for t-shirts or tea or lower price item because it's more like an impulse purchase. So, you know, you see a much higher, if I was looking at, you know, the revenue that's coming on the website, around 30% of that revenue would be coming from emails versus higher end. So let's say at Specialized, emails were driving more around like 10% of the revenue. So it's much lower, but it's still something that's, you know, worth considering. So the fundamentals will remain where those channels are still relevant. It's just each one brings in a different amount.
Okay.
What differs also is what's important for the consumer. So for higher ticket items like, you know, the bikes, education is very important. Trust is very important. So you need to have those trust signals on your website to make people not hesitate.
What is the trust signal?
So, for example, reviews, having a lot of reviews, having UGC. You know, so if you're gonna buy a couch and you go on the website and you see that there's 424 reviews that gave, you know, 4.5 stars, you're like, okay, I guess like this is like a good purchase. But if there's no reviews, you're gonna like hesitate. You're gonna say, is it comfortable? Am I gonna like it? So as soon as you hesitate, you don't purchase. So that's one trust signal. Then just making sure that you just offer everything that the customer will. So put yourself in their shoes. So again, if I'm buying a couch online, what will I think about? I'll think if it does it fit in my space. So make sure that the dimensions are clearly indicated. How is it going to look in my space? So have UGC content so that you can actually see how people have styled it in their own living rooms. Am I going to be able to return it easily? So having the return and cancellation policy right there available, not hidden somewhere in your FAQs and no one's going to go look at, but have everything available for them so that they can make a more informed decision. Because as soon as they hesitate, they leave and they don't come back.
Yeah. It's very interesting now that you're saying it. I see the behavior, my own behavior, basically when I'm buying things. It's very important to explain everything clearly, especially when it's an expensive item. I've bought furniture online, and it's a hassle, you know, returning and things like that. But more and more companies are doing it. There's a lot of new brands that sell like one or two items, like only like bed frames and whatever, mattresses or something like that. And they make the process much easier with different technologies. There's also like the technology where you can place it in your space.
AR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These I find these very useful
Yes.
when I'm buying
I'm planning
furniture.
to have that on my new website. Yeah.
Um, it's very interesting whether it's a big purchase like a $10,000 item or a smaller purchase up to $100. Um, to have everything very explicitly written to show everything how it's supposed to be shown. And how do you, let's say, if our for our audience, if they're building their own website or they're building it with someone, what are the first things that they need to look at other than what's written? Because that's also very important. What elements can they add to their website to improve the experience and to increase the conversions?
Um, so content is one that's very important. Having rich content, having imagery, videos available throughout the website. That's also another trust signal, in my opinion, because people, when they see a lot, they see a lot of nice imagery, they see videos, it makes them um, visualize the product a lot better. So it's easier than if it's just on a white background. There's like 2, 3 pictures, and it's not high quality. That's so first is the content. Second, like I said, reviews. Reviews are very important. Having user-generated content. So if you don't have that, trying to work with some influencers where they're going to create that for you, and just to get the ball rolling is important to
If
have.
somebody doesn't have like the means to pay UGC creators or influencers, um, do you think it's okay to have your content from your own social media
Yeah,
there
I think
where
to
they're
start,
showing also
yeah,
all these things?
for sure. To start, I think it's a good way. And if you don't have the budget, you can also do like product exchanges. Some influencers will accept that even if you're not paying them, if you
Yeah.
just give them the products. I also am a huge fan of smaller, like micro
Yes.
influencers than the bigger ones. Um, I don't think that I would ever invest in those very big influencers. It's just not worth it. But the smaller ones who have a smaller influence, who have a smaller following, but they have a huge influence on those followers, to me are
Yeah.
a lot. You get a lot more for your buck, a lot more value for your buck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the different buttons, the call to actions, ease of checkout, things like that?
Very important. So working with a platform like Shopify, which I think Shopify is doing an amazing job. They invest heavily in research and development. They're at the forefront. There's a reason why Mobilia's website, we're moving from Magento to Shopify. I forget the percentage right now, but there's a high percentage of Magento websites that are moving to Shopify, simply because Adobe, that owns Magento, is not investing in the roadmap, and Shopify is. So ease of checkout, Shopify does that really well.
Oh, yeah.
Their checkout converts so much more. Just the checkout will
Yes.
convert more.
Yes.
So having a good platform like that is really important. And Shopify's whole mission is to empower entrepreneurs and small businesses, but now they're also going after the bigger businesses with
Yeah.
their enterprise
Many of the
versions.
big brands are on
Yeah.
Shopify, and all the Kardashian stuff
Yes,
and
exactly. They're all on
Rode and
Shopify.
all of
Yeah,
these big brands, they're on Shopify.
exactly.
So it's
There's a
not just,
reason.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So we talked about how Shopify helps you optimize the checkout, and it's just the technology that's in the platform and all the different functionalities they have. But what else can I do to optimize the website?
So, what's important is, again, understanding your consumer and putting yourself in his or her shoes. So, when they come on your website, so whether you're selling something that is less expensive. So there's less of research that's happening, or something that's a little bit more high value where there's a lot more research, the purchase behavior is longer. You need to understand where the friction points will be
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that you remove them. So, checking your KPIs constantly is something that's really important. Having goals, making sure that, okay, my conversion rate is X. I want it to be Y. How am I gonna get there? Having some ideas, like, is it by increasing the traffic? Is it by making sure that like people are just converting more? Why are they not converting? So, we have at our disposal great tools that are free, like Google Analytics. You
Yeah.
just have to implement it on your website. It allows you to really dig deep and
Mm-hmm.
see, and then you can see why, if you sell multiple products, which ones are converting and which ones are
Yeah.
not. So it gives you an idea of what's happening, and you can optimize that way. So the whole journey needs to be
Yeah.
relooked at and optimized, and always putting yourself in that mindset of what your consumer will look
Mm-hmm.
for is
Mm.
really important.
So basically, mapping out your customer journey.
Yeah.
If there's a lot of traffic that comes to your website, what's happening there? If there's really a lot of people who are coming, but it's not converting, then there's something happening there.
Yeah.
Where is it that they're stopping? At what level, or what, or the page, or the product, or there's a lot of variables in this.
Yeah.
If not, why is traffic not coming? Then the the issue becomes like on the other side,
Exactly.
where is it my content, is it my campaigns, is it my ads, is it, so the whole thing needs to be mapped out and studied step by step to see where the friction is happening and why is it not working out. Whether you're small business or a big business, don't say I'm small business and I can't do this,
Of course. Yeah.
because
The fundamentals are always the same.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Speaking of Google, we talked about Google Analytics, but there's something new that's happening. Usually, our habits was, I want to Google this product, and then maybe I find it in the shopping because the company paid for the shop section. If not, I'm researching for something that I want, and I find it on Google, which is becoming more rare. Our habits are changing,
Right.
and we're going to ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever. And even in the Google search, there's Google's AI that's reply, like the first answer is by AI, and then you get the other ones. How are companies coping with that? We talked about previously, you and I, about GEO. Maybe let's talk a little bit about it. I know it's a large subject, but just to wrap this episode up, um, SEO versus GEO and what's happening now.
Yeah. So I'm going to start by saying that I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
I think that one
We're
is
all
expected.
new. We're all
Yeah,
new.
and someone who says that they're an expert, they're bullshitting you. But it is a very exciting time because it's a time where things are changing a lot, and companies who are able to step up and try things out will win because they will be the first movers. So the main differences, so SEO is search engine optimization, GEO is generative engine optimization. Some people say that SEO is dead and it's being replaced by GEO. I don't believe that. Maybe, if we talk again in a
Maybe in the
year, things
future.
will be different because things move so quickly. But right now, I don't believe that it's dead. I think that they're complementary, and it's kind of like an evolution. Some
Yeah.
people will start their journey of searching about a product on ChatGPT or Gemini or etc., the LLMs, and they will then verify that information in Google. So that's still happening, but more and more people are using and trusting the LLM. So SEO was really, there's a lot of like technical stuff that you can do on your website so that you appear higher on the search engines. It's a lot of keyword using, it's backlinks, so it's all of that you would do so that Google will show you higher. Geo is different, and in my opinion, Geo is more authentic because SEO, you could do all these things and it would work. GEO, you can't really fake it because GEO will go and look for any mentions of your brand across the web. So it's looking at reviews, it's looking at your social content, it's looking at everything together. So if you have bad reviews somewhere
Yeah.
on like Trustpilot or something
It
that
will
you don't
find
even,
it.
it will go and find it. So
Okay.
it makes your job harder, but it's also more authentic. And I think that there is a real opportunity for smaller brands to appear because if they do their job well and they have, good branding and their brand is recognized by the LLMs, they'll show up higher than like even the bigger brands. So
Okay.
so that's something that I think is encouraging for smaller brands because they have an opportunity now to do things well. But the way that GEO works is that it's going to go and really scrape not just your website, but other sources. So your message has to be consistent. And then on your own website, it likes the information to be organized. So what I mean by that
What does
is,
that mean?
so for example, having like, let's say content pages, but longer content, not just like shorter
More
blogs,
words.
a longer content, having like tables, it likes tables, it likes content.
Tables.
Yes, because it
Where
can
do we
read
put
it.
these?
If you want to do like, I don't know, comparisons or, if you want to show like, kind of like, us versus them, without mentioning your competitors, but
Yeah.
what makes us better. This couch versus that couch, like doing a comparison, like that kind of content, it likes it. And then your content just has to be well written, well understood. So if it's sometimes, um, if it's not done in the correct way, it won't be able to read it and it discards it. So
Okay.
investing in that kind of content. Reddit, for example, is one that is used a lot by
Well, you have to
yeah,
be somebody has to go on Reddit
and write
and
it.
write it.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know that takes time and
Yeah.
effort, but it's still worth
Yeah.
mentioning. Um, Even like having a Wikipedia page, which
Whoa.
yeah,
Okay.
which you could say like, why should I have a Wikipedia page? Like no one's gonna
As
read
a
that.
brand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's something that will
Huh.
be read by the
Interesting.
LLMs. Yeah.
I'm still learning about this, to
I
tell
think
you
we
the
all
truth.
are.
Yes.
We all are. Yeah.
Um, I I wonder now that you mentioned tables and long text.
Mm-hmm.
I see on websites shorter descriptions because people's attention span is very short. So what do we do? How do we manage what we want from AI and what do people want
Yeah.
and put it together on a site? This one wants longer text, more tables, more information. And the others, they just need like a 5-second thing to see, oh my God, yes, I want this, and put it in a cart and buy it.
Yeah. It's a good question. I think the best way is to have two separate areas of your website that deal with the content. So you'll have your product page where you'll have like shorter descriptions, you'll have more bullet points where people can get the information easily. And then you can have more like a section that's kind of like a blog where you're actually talking about these topics because um, the LLMs, of course, people ask questions and they're actually long-winded like questions
Yep.
versus the way people search on Google is by keywords. So you need to be answering those longer questions. So that's why like a blog form will be better and but longer blogs, not just like writing a paragraph, but writing like a longer blog that will address a certain question. Again, thinking about what will somebody search for to find your product, what is the best couch for a young family of 3 with a dog, that will
Yeah.
last me 5 years, so and then you write the content that's based on that. So That's what I would suggest.
So we're not far away from SEO because blogs are also
Yes,
very important
exactly.
for SEO. It's still the same concept.
I think that if you have the SEO concepts, like your SEO fundamentals are strong,
Mm,
you have like a step up already in
yeah,
GEO.
yeah, for sure. Do you happen to know if GEO also sees the keywords? You know, for SEO, you put things in the back end of the website, things that people don't see, keywords,
Yeah.
titles, blah, blah, blah. Do you happen to know if GEO also is able to scrape that information?
It's a good question.
You don't.
I don't know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're all still learning.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. It's all fascinating how fast this whole thing is changing.
Of course.
I want you to give our audience three things that they can do today to have a small win, let's say, if they're watching this.
Email marketing. I'll say that again. Focus on your own channels. So email is one of them. Your social media is another. Don't try to go everywhere and spread yourself too thin. Make sure that you are concentrating on winning one or two channels and then go into the other ones. That's the first thing. And the second is, again, understanding your consumer well and removing friction points from your website, increasing like trust signals on your website. And a third one is, if you're going to be investing in paid, which I totally believe in paid, make sure that you are, either if you want to do it yourself with, I think that there's the tools available to do it. Make sure that you're tracking it well and optimizing it fairly regularly. If you don't have time for that, there's a lot of like freelancers or small agencies that will, of course, they'll take a fee, but it's worth it to give it to a professional who will do that all the time, because if you're not optimizing it enough, it won't be driving the revenues that you want. So maybe investing a little bit of your budget and giving it to a professional that can do that all day long, and you don't have to worry about that, will bring you more. If you're going to invest, do it well.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nora,
It's my
for
pleasure.
doing this. And if you want Nora to be back and to dissect every single one of these topics that we talked about in separate episodes, let us know in the comments. And I'll see you next week with a new episode.